Let me tell you about a time over 20 years ago now where I felt completely alone, really scared, and literally trapped. It was as if I was in a cage and there was all these people around me, and yet they'd be walking by me, dismissing me, seeing me in the cage, but not really paying any attention to me. And when I spoke and when I said something, I just felt like I was just like so misunderstood. And nobody really seemed to get me, even the little bit of the ways that I was able to communicate what I thought was happening to me. It was as if people were looking at me like I was totally whacked. And so this feeling of being so alone just kept getting worse and worse. Has anybody here ever heard that song by Michael Bublé? You know that song called Home, where he talks about in the song, I'm standing in front of tens of thousands of people every single day, but all I want to do is just go home. He just wanted to be in that comfortable surroundings and around people that cared for him. Well, that's exactly how I felt, if I could describe it. Still being around people and people in my community, people that were in my family. But it was this disconnect that I was experiencing. And yet it almost was as if I felt like an alien within my own family dynamics. And I couldn't describe it in any other way. So, as I attempted to tell my story and connect with some of these people, I just kept feeling like there was this big wall. And it was like everybody was over here, and here I was over on this side, but still by myself. And so the tears just kept coming when I was alone. During the day when my kids were at school, I was just super depressed. I just kept crying. And then at the end of the day, when I had to go get them, I'd put on that happy face, put my makeup on, get myself dressed, get out there, do what I had to do. But the minute the kids went to bed at night, or even when my partner was beside me and he had fallen asleep, I couldn't stop crying. And then I just felt like I wasn't even getting a good night's sleep. And then I'd wake up the next day and my head would be in a fog. And that fog got thicker and thicker every single day. So my mind was actually in a really strange place. I was getting so lethargic and depressed and genuinely suicidal. And at that time, I didn't even know it, because I couldn't find anyone that I could trust or who could relate to what it was that I was feeling and going through, because that picture on the outside of what everybody thought my life was so perfect, on the inside, to me, something was amiss and I couldn't explain it. And so being suicidal, what I found out a little bit later on, was when it is genuine, where you are not reaching out and not asking for help and support. And that is something that was crucial that I understood later in my healing journey. But then the bottom really fell out from under me when all I wanted was just one person who could even maybe just give me a hug and be my friend, and to be there for me and just be a sounding board to listen to what my side of the story actually was. My partner at the time told me to go get my shit together and to just go see a doctor. And because I didn't understand what was happening for me, and I felt like I had just been kicked even lower, that again, I felt so unsupported. I ended up going to my doctor's office. And you know what she did? She just handed me an antidepressant on a prescription on a piece of paper, and then gave me another piece of paper with the name of a local family support counselor in the little town that we lived in. So I didn't know what I was doing. I filled out that prescription. And after 2 days, not only did I feel like an alien on my own planet, I began to feel like an alien on a different planet. So I still didn't feel happier. I didn't feel connected to anyone, but my physical body was getting all of these strange sensations in it. And it was as if I couldn't connect to my own body. It was the worst feeling I had ever had. So I just wound up throwing that prescription right into the garbage. But at that time, I had to make a decision, which meant I couldn't take the prescription medication to help me manage my tears and what I was feeling emotionally. And the pain and the grief that I was experiencing at that time was telling me that I needed to find a way so that I could function and provide care to be a stay-at-home mom, looking after my two young boys, and still having to get up and volunteer in my community. Let me tell you, volunteering in your community sometimes can actually be more than a full-time job. So I ended up booking the appointment with this counselor, and I didn't really get the results that I wanted. In fact, she started telling me her own personal problems during our sessions, and I thought to myself, holy crap, this is like, it's going in a totally different direction. I still couldn't connect to this woman. So I ended up stop seeing her and asked around a little bit more. And eventually I found a different counselor who was highly recommended and not covered by insurance. And I still had to pay out of my own pocket. But I knew, I had a gut feeling that this was the route that I had to take. So in that first session, I'm telling you, within 10 minutes, this woman knew exactly what I was going through. And after a couple of very specific questions, she declared I was suffering from what she called codependency. And you know what? She totally understood exactly what I was going through, and she got me. This was huge. It was a monumental moment for me. And literally, when she told me, I know exactly what you have, I felt like I had made an honest connection with someone. And literally, this was the first session with her. But she said to me, listen, you need to work on yourself. You need to take time looking after you. And she says, and plus, I'm going to give you some homework that I want you to physically do. And she says, and I want you to start reading. And she said, there is a very specific book that I recommend to all of my clients. And she goes, I encourage you to go buy a copy right away and start reading it. And I want you to have this read before you come back for your next session. And she said, and remember, you have to start practicing looking after you. And so she said to me, I want you to take 1 hour every single day doing something that is just for you. And I literally bolted right back at this counselor and I said to her, you have got to be kidding me. I have all of these chores, all of these things I have to do, plus look after my children. And you're telling me to take an hour for myself? In my mind, that felt literally impossible. And so she challenged me and she said, okay, then break it down. Start with just 10 minutes. And I said, 10 minutes? And she said, do you think you can handle doing something for yourself that takes 10 minutes? And I was so lost. I sat in that chair and I literally had to think about what I could do for myself that would just be 10 minutes. And she said, don't worry about it. You're going to figure it out. And she said, just start there. So we're going to build you up to an hour. She says, but begin with 10 minutes. I literally went home that day and thought to myself, what on earth could I do for myself for 10 minutes? And I figured something out. I literally grabbed a jar of nail polish and I sat in my bathroom and I painted every single toenail. And I allowed myself to take 1 minute to paint every single toenail. And you know what? I cried. the whole time. I literally cried because I didn't even know how to give myself permission to just do something that made me feel good about me. And it was a major breakthrough moment to just give myself permission to care, because that's what I was needing. I was lacking that. The next day, I went out and I went to the store and I looked at all of the books. I found the exact book that she was talking about and I bought it and I started reading it. I could not believe when I literally read that first page that my life was described in a book written by someone else. I just couldn't believe it. She had recommended it. And so I literally asked someone to look after my children so I could read a book. I got a babysitter to read a book. That's how messed up I was. And that book I read probably within 2 days. And I just kept flipping the page and going, holy crap. How is my life in a book? It literally blew my mind. And this was the first self-help book I had ever read amongst the many books I would still continue to read in that genre. So the nugget for me that I really needed at that time in my life was, first of all, I discovered how to connect with other people's stories, because it wasn't the picture of what was happening to those people. It was about what was going on internally. What were they experiencing on emotional level? Because I was grieving at that time. And I wasn't just grieving because my father had just passed. I was grieving because the story of the fairy tale of the life that I thought I had achieved on the outside wasn't real. It was a fairy tale. It was a picture, and it was something that no one else could see. It was my version of what was happening. And I needed to really understand myself a lot better, because I couldn't even connect to what it was that I was feeling. I didn't even know how to express myself. And even on that day when the counselor asked me how I was feeling, I said to her, I don't know. I said to her, no one's ever asked me what it is I'm feeling. That was like a foreign question to me. No wonder I felt like such an alien. But I also discovered how to breathe, how to slow down, and how to listen and to be a part of a group and hear different perspectives of the same issue. Because as I got deeper into working with this counselor, the next step for me that she recommended was that I go to very specific counseling for codependents, people dealing with addictions in their family. And by being a part of a group, it was just about feeling like I belonged somewhere, even though we all had our own stories and our own family situations. Deep down at the core, we were all dealing with having to function in dysfunction, right? And that's part of the human journey. That's just not specific to me, because none of us are perfect. Absolutely none of us. So it was a coping mechanism for me. And lastly, I also discovered how to go with the flow and not force any actions or plans to begin my own healing process, because my journey was very different from everybody else's journey. And even the people that I met during that time and the people that I was able to connect with later on, you can't force it. You have to just allow your life to unfold in the way that it's meant to unfold. But the big nugget for me was that I learned how I could feel safe and express myself and connect with those raw emotions that I didn't even know were there under the surface and were bubbling up all the time because that's why I was crying. And as I progressed, I learned how to trust my own intuition again, really connect with my heart. And this meant that I now had the tools and I had the power to make my own choices, to find my voice, and to take responsibility for my own actions. And because of that journey, I found my personal power and I became a role model for other people to really learn how to connect with themselves and to really trust what it is that they are feeling and know that is genuine for them and find the perfect way to express it.